The city skyline glittered under the early evening sun, casting long shadows across the streets below. Jason Harper leaned against the balcony railing of his apartment, swirling a glass of whiskey, though he wasn't much of a drinker. Tonight should have been light, celebratory. His fiancée, Emily, had left for her bachelorette party hours ago, and he'd promised himself he'd stay out of her way, let her enjoy the night with her friends. For years of trust, for years of love, they were supposed to culminate in the perfect wedding, and the honeymoon plans to Santorini were flawless. His phone buzzed, then another notification. Yet, the messages were mundane. A smiling selfie from a friend of Emily's, a joke about a cocktail. Nothing from her. A small, irrational worry curled in his chest. But he shook it off. She's having fun, he thought. That's what this night is for. Jason glanced around the apartment. Every detail of their wedding had been his careful orchestration. The honeymoon itinerary, the flowers, the playlists. Emily trusted him, and he trusted her. But as the night stretched on, the silence in his inbox began to gnaw at him. He poured another drink, set aside, and tried distracting himself with music. Yet each laugh or cheer from a distant street below seemed to echo the unease inside him. By midnight, he gave up waiting. Sleep was elusive. Every creak of the apartment floor, every distant horn, seemed magnified in the stillness. And then it came, a tiny notification, a text from Emily's maid of honor. But it wasn't meant for him. He stared at it, hesitated, then opened it. Oh my God, Mark was there? I can't believe Emily. The words were enough to freeze him. Mark? Emily's best friend's husband? The name alone hit like a physical blow. He stared at the screen, reading and rereading the message. And they went upstairs together. I didn't know I'd tell anyone. Please don't tell Jason. Jason's hand shook. His heart pounded in disbelief and horror. He tried rationalizing it. It must be a misunderstanding. But the thread of panic had already dug in, a dark seed he couldn't unplant. He set down the phone and left the apartment, needing air, needing distance from the suffocating apartment walls and the nightmare forming in his mind. The cafe was quiet this hour, the hum of conversation muted, clinking cups filling the space between murmured words. He slid into a booth near the back, hoping for distraction, perhaps a chance to compose himself. And then he overheard it, a conversation from the table next to him. I still can't get over it. Emily and Mark, on her bachelorette night? One woman whispered, her voice sharp with disbelief. I know. I wasn't supposed to say anything, but it's true. She thought no one would find out. It was... Another voice trailed off. Jason's hands gripped the table. Every rational thought screamed at him to leave, to confront, to flee. But he stayed, absorbing each damning detail. The night that was meant for celebration had transformed into something dark, secretive, a hidden betrayal that now unfolded in fragments before him. By the time he left the cafe, the city felt alien. Lights that had once seemed warm now burned harsh, casting cold reflections on the glass buildings. He walked home briskly, heart hammering, mind racing. Every scenario, every possible explanation flashed across his mind, none of them comforting. Emily was home. The familiar hum of the apartment greeted him as he entered. Yet every step toward her felt weighted. She was in the kitchen, smiling softly as though nothing had happened, a faint scent of perfume lingering in the air. Her cheerfulness now seemed forced, fragile, as if a mask covered something deeper. Hey, Jason, how was your night? She asked, bright and casual, unaware, or pretending not to know, of the storm gathering in him. Fine, he said, voice tighter than intended. He couldn't betray the storm within yet. He needed proof, clarity. You. Emily shrugged, brushing her hair back. Fun. Girls' night. You know how it is. He forced a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Something was off. He noted the way she avoided his gaze, the slight tension in her shoulders. And then he remembered the message, the cafe conversation. He excused himself under the pretense of checking something in the bedroom and retrieved her phone from the charging station. It was there, in the messages hidden under casual texts and emojis, flirty exchanges between Emily and Mark. Texts that escalated to the night, playful, intimate, and undeniable. A photo, a single image that confirmed every fear. The proof of betrayal. Her arms around him, their faces close, laughter captured in a moment that should never have existed. Jason dropped the phone onto the bed, the weight of truth pressing down on him. Every instinct screamed at him: anger, grief, disbelief. He called Emily into the room, the air between them suddenly thick, heavy. "Emily, what is this?" His voice was calm, deceptively calm, like a thin veneer over the raging tempest inside. She froze, her eyes widening as she took in the phone. A shadow passed across her expression. Fear, guilt, panic, all colliding at once. Jason, she began, voice trembling. "Don't," he interrupted, the word cutting through the tension. "Just don't." Emily's defenses crumbled. Tears welled in her eyes, her hands fumbling for explanations that sounded hollow. "I didn't mean..." "It was a mistake, a moment of weakness. Please forgive me." Jason's throat tightened. The image of their future together, the wedding, the honeymoon, the life they had planned, fractured into irreparable pieces. He wanted to scream, to shake her, to demand an explanation that would make sense, but nothing could. Nothing would. "I trusted you," he said finally, voice breaking, yet steady enough to convey the weight of betrayal. "For 4 years, I trusted you. And you chose to betray that trust." Emily sobbed, the raw sound filling the room, but it couldn't undo what had been done. Words like sorry and mistake echoed hollowly in the space between them. Jason knew in that moment that forgiveness could not bridge the chasm she had created. We can't, he said, stepping back. "The wedding is off. Everything stops here." Her face crumpled further, disbelief mingling with desperation. "Jason, please. We can fix this. I love you. We can work through it." Jason shook his head slowly, a tear slipping down his cheek. "Love isn't just words, Emily. Love doesn't survive betrayal like this. You lied, you hid, you chose someone else over me. I won't be part of a life built on lies." Emily sank to the edge of the bed, hands pressed to her face, sobs muffled yet relentless. Jason stood by the window, staring out at the city lights below, as if the sparkling skyline could somehow erase the betrayal that had shattered his world. He didn't immediately turn to leave. Something in him needed one last look at the woman he had loved for 4 years, the woman he had imagined walking down the aisle, saying vows, sharing a lifetime. But that image was gone. Only the truth remained, sharp and unyielding. The next morning, the apartment felt hollow. Emily avoided him entirely, moving silently through the rooms like a ghost of the life they had planned. Jason, despite the weight pressing on his chest, forced himself to get out of bed, to face the world outside. He needed air, clarity, a reminder that life existed beyond this apartment. As he walked through the streets, the city was alive in contrast to his inner desolation. People laughed, cafes hummed with chatter, and life continued as though nothing had happened. And yet, for Jason, nothing would ever be the same. He found himself at the little bakery where he and Emily had shared countless Saturday mornings, the place that had felt like home. He ordered a coffee, but barely noticed the aroma of fresh bread. His thoughts kept circling back to Emily, to Mark, to the night that shattered everything. The revelation had consequences far beyond him. Mutual friends began to notice tension. Rumors trickled through social circles, and the fallout spread like wildfire. Emily's circle was divided, some in disbelief, others quietly judging. And Mark, his marriage, once seemingly perfect, crumbled under the weight of betrayal and exposure. Jason's phone buzzed incessantly. Texts from friends offering support, awkward calls from acquaintances, even messages from Emily pleading, begging, promising change. He read none of them. He didn't respond, not because he wanted revenge, but because he knew the only way forward was to honor the truth he had uncovered and the self-respect he refused to compromise. Days blurred into weeks. Jason immersed himself in work, friends, and long walks that led nowhere and everywhere at once. The pain was raw, yet strangely clarifying. He realized that the life he thought he had, built on trust, love, and shared dreams, wasn't the life he deserved. He deserved honesty. He deserved someone who chose him fully and completely. One evening, as he returned from a late shift, he noticed a small envelope slipped under his door. Inside was a note from Emily. "I will never stop loving you. I hope someday you can forgive me. If not for me, for yourself. Jason folded the note slowly, placing it in a drawer. Forgiveness was irrelevant now. Survival and self-respect mattered more. Months passed. The wedding that had been planned with so much care never happened. The ring, once a symbol of unity, was returned. Emily moved out, taking with her the remnants of a shared life that now felt like someone else's memory. Jason rebuilt his world, piece by piece. He found solace in routines, in friendships that reminded him of laughter and light. He traveled, something he had always postponed for the honeymoon, discovering hidden beaches and quiet cafes, small moments that stitched together a sense of peace he hadn't known in months. Yet, even in rebuilding, the memories lingered. The stolen glances at Emily, the images of Mark, the whispered betrayal. Jason didn't deny the hurt, didn't try to bury it, but he allowed it to teach him. He learned the boundaries of trust, the fragility of appearances, and the strength that came from standing firm when the world had shifted beneath his feet. One afternoon, he walked through a park, autumn leaves crunching beneath his boots, and spotted a young couple laughing together. He smiled faintly, a distant echo of a hope he once held. The future was unknown, unshaped by betrayal, open to possibility. Jason realized that resilience wasn't about revenge or closure. It was about choosing oneself, valuing one's own worth, and moving forward even when the past had cut deep. The pain he'd endured became a compass, guiding him toward honesty, integrity, and a life he could fully inhabit without compromise. In quiet moments, he allowed himself to remember the love he had for Emily, not with longing, but as a chapter in a story that had ended, teaching him more about himself than he had ever known. Betrayal, harsh and cruel, had forced clarity. He was free to live a life unshackled by lies, unburdened by deceit, and no longer defined by someone else's choices. By the time winter arrived, Jason had found a rhythm, a peace that came from self-reliance and truth. He sat by his apartment window one evening, the city lights reflecting in his eyes, a book in hand, a cup of coffee steaming beside him. He allowed a small smile to form, not at someone else's happiness, but at his own capacity to endure, to rise, and to choose authenticity over illusion. In the end, Jason understood that love alone wasn't enough. It had to be paired with honesty and mutual respect. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing. He would never allow himself to be deceived, manipulated, or undervalued again. The betrayal he had endured had taken much, but had given him the greatest gift of all, a clear vision of the life he deserved. And as the night deepened, with the city alive yet calm beneath him, Jason Harper, once shattered, now whole in his self-respect, whispered to himself, "Better alone than betrayed. Better truth than illusion. Better me than a lie." The past was a scar, but scars healed. The future was unwritten, and for the first time in months, he felt ready to write his own story.